Welcome to Propeller Breeze, the show for student pilots, sim fans, and everyone chasing that first solo and beyond. All information in this podcast is for entertainment and general knowledge only. Always verify with certified flight instructors or regulatory authorities before attempting anything mentioned here.
You know, there is this very specific, almost universal dream.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like you're sitting in the left seat of an airplane for the very first time. Your hands are gripping the yoke. The engine is vibrating right through the floorboards, traveling straight up through your shoes.
It's a powerful feeling.
It really is. You look out the window and the ground just falls away. It's just you, the machine, and the sky.
I mean, it is the ultimate expression of freedom. For over a century, that exact image has been holy grail for anyone who has ever, looked up at a passing plane and thought, I want to do that.
Exactly. But if your goal is to finally pursue that private pilot license, to become a student pilot and actually take those controls, your first real battle isn't with gravity or aerodynamics.
No, it's definitely not.
It's with paperwork, the sheer bureaucracy of it all. So today, we're going to map out exactly how you get past that red tape so you can actually get into the cockpit.
Because it can be a maze if you don't know what you're looking at.
Oh, a total maze. We are pulling directly from the FAA's official guidelines today, specifically their rulebook titled Pathways to the Student Pilot Certificate, to give you a step-by-step roadmap. Okay, let's unpack this, because you cannot just march into a government office and apply for a generic flying license.
Right, that doesn't exist.
Right. The very first thing you have to do basically dictates every single rule that follows.
And that's because the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, recognizes that flying is a very, very broad term. Your administrative path depends entirely on the specific category of aircraft you actually want to command.
And the menu they offer is surprisingly massive. I mean, when you picture getting a pilot's license, you probably picture a standard single-engine airplane like a Cessna 172.
Which is the classic trainer.
Right, the classic.
Yeah.
But the FAA guidelines specifically list airplanes, gyroplanes, weight shift control aircraft, helicopters, powered parachutes, gliders, balloons, and even airships.
Airships.
Yeah, airships. Like, you can get a federal student certificate to pilot a blimp.
Which is pretty amazing when you think about it. But from a regulatory standpoint, establishing these distinct categories makes perfect sense.
How so?
Well, the physics, the necessary skills, and the inherent risks of, say, floating in a hot air balloon are vastly different from hovering in a helicopter, right? Or managing the aerodynamics of a powered parachute. The FAA's entire philosophy is that one size absolutely does not fit all.
Makes sense. Oh, and speaking of not fitting all, there's an interesting carve-out here for ultralight vehicles.
Yes, the ultralight rule.
If you decide to fly an ultralight, you don't actually need a student pilot certificate at all. You can literally just go fly.
It is a unique carve-out, but I should point out it comes with severe limitations. Ultralights are highly restricted in terms of their empty weight, fuel capacity, and maximum speed.
So they're basically like flying go-karts.
Essentially, yeah. They are single-occupant recreational vehicles meant to be flown in uncontrolled airspace during daylight hours only. The FAA's philosophy here revolves around the risk radius. If you're only posing a risk to yourself in a very lightweight vehicle far away from populated areas and commercial air traffic, the federal regulatory burden is practically zero.
Because you're only going to hurt yourself if something goes wrong.
Brutal, but true. But the moment you add a passenger or significant mass or a complex engine, you increase the public risk. And that is when the strict rules kick in.
Which brings us to the actual baseline rules for getting that student pilot certificate for regulated aircraft. The foundational requirements are really just about age and language.
Right.
You must be able to read, speak, write, and understand the English language.
Because aviation is a globally interconnected system. English was established a long time ago as the international standard language of the sky.
No matter where you are.
Exactly. Whether you are flying out of a small dirt strip in Kansas or navigating the complex airspace around Charles de Gaulle in Paris, the air traffic control communications rely on a standardized understanding of English.
So it's purely a global failsafe. Like, if an engine catches fire mid-flight and a pilot needs an emergency diversion, they can't be pausing to translate instructions with a local control tower.
Exactly. Seconds matter in aviation, and a linguistic misunderstanding can easily become catastrophic.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Now, the age requirements are where I really started scratching my head.
Oh, the age limits are fascinating.
Yeah. Generally, you have to be at least 16 years old to get a student pilot certificate for airplanes, helicopters, and gyroplanes. But for a glider or a balloon, you only need to be 14 years old.
Yep, 14.
Wait, a 14-year-old can't drive a Honda Civic to school alone, but they can be completely responsible for piloting a hot air balloon. Is that just because balloons move slower?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the FAA views the difference between powered, heavy machinery and wind-powered flight. It's not just about speed, it is about mechanical complexity and the management of kinetic energy.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. So a powered airplane brings complex fuel systems, combustible engines, and a massive amount of kinetic energy to a runway environment. A glider, or a balloon, on the other hand, relies entirely on managing natural forces.
Like thermodynamics and wind.
Exactly. Thermodynamics, wind currents, and gravity.
So it's kind of like the difference between teaching a teenager how to surf a wave versus teaching them how to operate a high-speed twin-engine motorboat in a crowded harbor.
That is a perfect analogy.
Both require immense skill, obviously, but one involves managing heavy explosive machinery.
Precisely. Managing an engine failure on takeoff in a Cessna requires a level of cognitive maturity and rapid decision-making that the FAA believes is generally reached around age 16.
Right.
The cognitive requirements to safely manage the natural forces of a glider or balloon can be safely managed a bit earlier. Therefore, they create entirely different baseline rules depending on your chariot of choice.
Okay, so let's say you've picked your aircraft.
Yeah.
You were aiming for a standard airplane, working towards a private pilot license. You're 16 and you speak fluent English.
You check the boxes.
Right, the baseline boxes. You might think the very next step is to head to the local airstrip and book a flight lesson. But the FAA strongly suggests you get pause and go to a doctor first.
The medical hurdle. And frankly, this is the most crucial piece of logistical advice for anyone starting this journey.
Totally. The rulebook officially suggests getting your medical certificate before you even begin flight training. And the logic they provide is it's brutally practical.
It really is.
Flight hours are expensive. You're paying for the aircraft rental, the fuel, the instructor's time. The FAA wants you to avoid sinking thousands of dollars into training if you have an underlying medical condition that will permanently prevent you from flying solo anyway.
And it is a heartbreaking scenario that happens way more often than it should.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Someone gets incredibly passionate, they start logging hours with an instructor, they master the maneuvers, and then they hit a brick wall when it's time to fly solo because a routine medical check reveals an issue they didn't even realize was a disqualifier.
Ouch. That would be devastating. And to cross this hurdle, you can't just schedule a physical with your regular family doctor, right?
No, not at all.
You have to fill out an application through a dedicated online portal called MedExpress. Then you have to find an AME, an aviation medical examiner.
Which is a very specific type of doctor.
Right. There are only about 6,000 of these authorized doctors in the entire country, so you have to use the FAA's locator tool to find one. Why the exclusivity? Like, what is an AME doing that my general practitioner isn't?
Well, general practitioners are looking at your overall health for day-to-day life on the ground. Aviation medicine is a highly specialized field.
Okay.
An AME is evaluating your physiology to determine how you will function at altitude in an unpressurized cabin under immense cognitive stress.
Right, because you're literally in the sky.
Exactly. They are specifically screening for conditions that could cause sudden incapacitation mid-flight. They rigorously test your visual acuity, peripheral vision, color vision, hearing, cardiovascular health, and they look for any neurological conditions.
It's intense.
It is. A minor heart murmur that your family doctor says is completely fine for a normal life might be a critical risk when you're pulling G-forces or dealing with lower oxygen levels at 8,000 feet.
And the certificates these doctors issue are broken down into tiers, right?
Yes, 3 classes.
First class is the most rigorous, meant for airline transport pilots flying commercial jets. Second class is for commercial pilots like crop dusters or charter pilots. And finally, third class, which is the standard baseline you would need as a student pilot aiming for a private pilot license.
Correct.
But just like the age requirements, there are entirely different rules depending on what you fly.
Right, because the FAA consistently scales its regulations to match the public risk.
Yeah, because if you're flying a balloon or a glider, you do not need to see an AME at all. You just write a personal statement certifying you have no known medical defect that makes you unsafe.
Which goes back to the risk radius we talked about earlier.
Sure, but the one that really gets me is the sport pilot category. If you want to fly a light sport aircraft, you don't need a medical exam. Your valid U.S. driver's license acts as your legal proof of medical competence.
That's the problem.
Let me push back on this. For a standard Cessna 172, I need a specialized aviation doctor to clear my cardiovascular system. But for a light sport aircraft, my state driver's license, which I renewed while standing in a sluggish line at the DMV, is suddenly proof that I'm medically fit to navigate the sky.
I know it seems like a massive contradiction, but there is a very deliberate logic in the FAA's tiered approach here.
Walk me through it.
A light sport aircraft is highly restricted. It is limited to a maximum takeoff weight of 1,320 pounds. It can only have 2 seats total, and its maximum speed is strictly capped.
So it's small and slow.
Right. Furthermore, sport pilots generally operate in uncongested airspace, away from major international airports. The FAA is essentially calculating the damage potential.
Ah, I see.
They are saying, if your state government trusts your medical ability to operate a 4,000-pound SUV at 75 miles per hour on a densely packed highway, we trust you to operate a very light, very slow aircraft in open airspace. The medical scrutiny perfectly mirrors the complexity and public responsibility of the aircraft.
Okay, framed like that, it actually makes a lot of sense.
It's all about mitigating risk.
And the guidelines also address physical disabilities in a way that I found highly encouraging. Having a physical disability might place certain limitations on your flying, but it doesn't automatically prevent you from acting as a pilot.
Not at all.
You just have to work with your local FAA office to demonstrate your practical ability to operate the aircraft safely.
It is a fundamentally inclusive system, provided that safety margins are never compromised. The FAA relies on what they call medical flight tests.
How do those work?
They evaluate the practical reality of what you can physically do in the cockpit. Like,
Yeah.
can you reach the rudder pedals? Can you manipulate the throttle? Can you handle emergency procedures? They focus on that practical reality rather than just looking at a medical diagnosis written on a piece of paper.
That's brilliant. So your heart won't stop at 5,000 feet, and the FAA trusts your body. Now, how do you get them to trust you with the actual paperwork? Because this is the real administrative gauntlet, getting your name on the Student Pilot Certificate.
Right. Step 3. This step involves a lot of acronyms, I'll warn you, but the process has actually been massively modernized in recent years.
Thank goodness. The rulebook outlines a whole roster of people authorized to process your application. You can go to an FAA inspector, a designated pilot examiner, a DPE, an airman certification representative, an ACR, or simply your certified flight instructor, your CFI.
And honestly, utilizing your CFI is almost always the most efficient route.
Just because you're already with them?
Exactly. You're already working with them for your lessons, and part of their job is guiding you through this exact bureaucracy.
But the way this application travels through the government is pretty fascinating. They highly push an electronic system called IACRA. That's the Integrated Airman Certification and Rating Application.
Yes, IACRA changed everything.
So when your instructor submits it through IACRA, it gets routed directly into the FAA's central database at the Airman Certification Branch, known as AFS 760, located in Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City really serves as the beating heart of all FAA record-keeping. The digital IACRA system was a desperately needed upgrade for them.
Because of the old paper system.
Right. Before IACRA, everything relied on paper forms that had to be physically mailed to a local flight standards district office, the FSDO.
And the rulebook actually points out that if you still insist on filling out a paper application today, it still has to go to your local FSDO first. Like, it just sits on a desk there, gets processed manually, and then they forward it to Oklahoma City.
Which introduces massive delays and the very real risk of lost paperwork.
No one wants that.
Exactly. The electronic routing bypasses the local office bottleneck entirely. It verifies your identity and transmits the data directly to the printing facility in Oklahoma City.
And that printing facility was the center of a massive revolution that happened on April 1st, 2016.
A huge day for aviation bureaucracy.
Truly. Before that date, a student pilot certificate was literally just a piece of paper, and it had a strict expiration date. If it expired, you had to start over. But the 2016 overhaul changed everything. The FAA transitioned to printing the certificate on a permanent secure plastic card.
So did they just realize that printing critical federal documents on flimsy paper that gets crumpled at the bottom of a flight bag was a nightmare to manage?
Well, durability was certainly a major factor, yeah, as was modernizing security to prevent fraud. But functionally, this shift from paper to plastic fundamentally changed the operational reality for student pilots.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the new plastic cards do not have an expiration date.
None at all.
Once you receive that student pilot certificate in the mail, it is yours indefinitely. which is incredibly forgiving for the reality of flight training.
Because life happens.
Exactly. Life often gets in the way. People run out of disposable income for lessons, they have a child, they move across the country, or they just need to take a break from flying for a few years.
Right.
Under the old rules, your paper certificate would expire and you'd have to jump through all the administrative hoops again. Now, your student pilot certificate remains valid forever.
But wait, if the new plastic card doesn't have an expiration date, how does the FAA regulate when you are actually allowed to fly? There has to be a time limit on your permission to be in the sky as a student, right?
And that is the genius of the 2016 logbook shift.
Yeah.
Under the old paper system, when an instructor decided you were ready to fly solo, they physically wrote their endorsement, their signature, directly onto your paper student pilot certificate.
Oh, wow.
So the permission to fly was permanently bound to the certificate itself. With the shift to permanent plastic cards, that changed entirely. Solo endorsements no longer go on the certificate, they go exclusively into your pilot's logbook.
Oh, I get it. It's like an unactivated credit card.
Tell me more.
Like, the piece of plastic itself doesn't actually buy you anything. It just proves to the bank, or the FAA in this case, that you have a registered account and you pass the background check. But the flight instructor has to go into your logbook and eventually activate it with a signature before you can use it to fly.
That is the perfect analogy. The plastic card is purely an identification document. It proves your age, your language proficiency, and your identity.
But it doesn't give you permission.
No, the actual privilege to command an aircraft solo has been entirely relocated to the logbook. Without a logbook full of current, valid signatures from an instructor, that permanent plastic card does not grant you the right to lift a single wheel off the runway.
Which sets up our final reality perfectly, the ultimate goal of the solo flight.
The Holy Grail.
Yes, you've jumped through the hoops. You have the unactivated credit card from Oklahoma City. You pass the AME's medical exam. You're over 16. You're sitting there with all your federal documents. But what does this certificate actually allow you to do?
Very, very little, until you earn that logbook endorsement. And even then, it is highly restricted.
A student pilot is permitted to fly alone, to solo, but only under incredibly specific circumstances. First, the logbook endorsement isn't a blanket permission to fly any airplane, right?
No, not at all.
The CFI endorses you for a specific make and model of aircraft. If you spent 60 hours training in a Cessna 172, you cannot just hop into a Piper Cherokee and fly it solo, even though you hold a valid student pilot certificate.
Because the aerodynamics, the avionics, and the handling characteristics are different enough between models that the FAA requires your instructor to personally vouch for your competence in that exact machine.
Makes sense. And the limitations are absolute. As a student pilot flying solo, you cannot carry passengers. You cannot fly in furtherance of a business, so no getting paid to fly, and no carrying cargo for a company. And you cannot operate outside of the specific limitations your instructor wrote in your logbook. If your CFI wrote that you can only fly within a 20 nautical mile radius of your home airport, and only when visibility is greater than 10 miles, that endorsement is the literal law for you.
Because you are still fundamentally a student. You have not proven your competence to an objective FAA examiner yet. You have only proven it to your specific instructor under specific controlled conditions.
But this leads to what is undoubtedly the most mind-bending paradox in the entire FAA rulebook. Here's the craziest part of the text we've been reviewing today.
Let's hear it.
It states, and I quote, "There is no minimum aeronautical knowledge or experience requirement for the issuance of a student pilot certificate." So the FAA will literally print my name on a permanent federal pilot certificate, seal it in plastic, and mail it to my house before I even know how to turn on the airplane's battery.
Yes, they absolutely will.
That's wild.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, returning to your credit card analogy, the certificate is merely the unactivated plastic. The federal government is simply verifying your identity, tracking you in their system, and confirming you meet the baseline medical and age requirements.
Right.
They hand you this card, but you possess zero power to use it.
The certified flight instructor holds all the power.
Exactly. The CFI holds the power to activate that certificate based on your actual demonstrated aeronautical knowledge and experience. The FAA says you do not need to know anything about aerodynamics to hold the card, but you need rigorously tested knowledge and physical skill to actually fly the plane.
The logbook endorsements are the magic that breathes life into the plastic card.
Beautifully said.
It is an incredibly well-structured system when you lay it all out. So let's recap your flight plan if you're aiming for that left seat. Step 1. Pick your aircraft category. Because whether you want to manage combustible engines or thermal dynamics dictates the rules of your game.
Step 1, done.
Step 2. Protect your wallet by getting your medical clearance out of the way early. Either pass the specialized A&E exam for a third-class medical, or if you're flying a light sport plane, just grab your driver's license.
Crucial step.
Step 3. Navigate the digital IACRA system with your instructor to bypass the local paperwork bottleneck and get your permanent, non-expiring plastic ID card from Oklahoma City. And step 4. Hit the books in the cockpit until you earn that specific make and model logbook endorsement to finally fly solo.
It is a demanding journey. But before we finish today, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Go for it.
We have spent this time dissecting the bureaucracy, the forms, the databases, the medical tiers, the plastic cards. But think about the immense trust and responsibility placed entirely on the shoulders of the certified flight instructor in this system.
Wow.
The federal government, the FAA, is willing to issue a permanent pilot certificate to a citizen with zero flight experience. They rely entirely on a single human being, the flight instructor, to be the ultimate safety net. All of that federal regulation, the entire safety of the national airspace system over our cities and towns, ultimately rests on a single handwritten signature in a student's logbook.
That is profound.
It makes you wonder, sitting in that right seat, watching a student struggle, learn, and adapt, how exactly does an instructor decide the exact moment you are truly ready to leave the ground entirely alone for the very first time?
That is a heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
And a profoundly beautiful one. If you are on that pathway to your private pilot license, keep studying, keep prepping for the skies, and respect the incredible process it takes to get there. Next time you feel those floorboards vibrating, you will know exactly what it took to earn your seat. Keep looking up, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
That's it for this episode. Keep your wings level, your brain sharp, and catch you next time in the pattern. Thanks for riding with Propeller Breeze.